Hello and welcome, all you nerds, to the Matt Powers Show. That's right, this is the Nerd Culture Podcast where we talk about all things nerdy, like movies and TV shows and video games and what have you. I am the titular character, Matt Powers, a cartoon character if there ever was one. I'm a end of my life millennial, end of my 30s millennial, living in my mother's basement, podcasting to all of you. Because, well, that's what a millennial does at this day and age, in this time period we live in. Listen, today we're going to talk about something real low-key. Dad pun there. We're going to talk about Loki, the series Loki that's on Disney Plus right now. But I have to warn everyone, spoiler alert, for this entire conversation. We are midway through Loki now, and it's time to start talking about it. And big spoilers for what's already happened in the show. We're going to be spoiling stuff that happened in the MCU. So if you're not caught up through Phase 3 of the movies, Mom, you probably don't want to hear this. So turn it off now. Come back when you've caught up on everything. But for the rest of us, let's talk about Loki. We're going to start with, I think, the most important thing to talk about when talking about Loki is what is going on with the Sacred Timeline. So there's a lot of inconsistencies, in my opinion, about where the show is and what they're telling us and what we've already seen from the MCU. You know, one of the big things is that the timekeepers, right? They keep this. They're trying to create the Sacred Timeline, so everything kind of fits into this one timeline. But we've already seen where a multiverse exists, where multiple timelines exist, and then they say that was even expected. The whole thing with Thanos and going back in time and taking the gems and creating parallel timelines was all expected to happen. And I feel like there can't possibly be a group of people trying to maintain a sacred timeline if they're allowing there to be these variants, if they're allowing these timelines to happen. We also just found out in episode 3 that everyone who works at the TVA is a variant, that they weren't actually created by the TVA, but they've been told they've been created by the Timekeepers, but they are in fact variants. Lady Loki told us this, Sylvie, sorry, and that just seems crazy to me that they would allow variants to run around, because that means there are multiple timelines that exist. So the question now is, are the Timekeepers actually who they say they are? Do the Timekeepers really exist, or is there someone else behind all of this? Now, I've heard some fan theories and stuff out there where people have said, "Whoa, I bet it's another Loki, a variant Loki that's running everything." That's kind of an interesting theory, and one which we can play around with. Personally, I think that the Timekeepers did exist, and they're dead now. Something killed them. But the Timekeeper's purpose wasn't to create a sacred timeline. The Timekeeper's purpose was just to make sure that the variants didn't go, wildly out of control. I think the sacred timeline is being kept because someone or something is trying to prevent its own destruction. What do I mean by that? Well, one of the big theories out there right now, which I don't know if it's true, and maybe this is wishful thinking, is that Kang the Conqueror from the distant future, who's probably one of the Timekeepers himself, Kang the Conqueror is attempting to control the flow of time to create a sacred timeline that prevents his destruction, prevents his death, and specifically allows him to rule, where he's the ruler of all things in the future. Now, why would this? First off, why Kang? Okay, well, if you don't know who Kang the Conqueror is, he's an Avengers villain and other people's villains in the comics. He's a time traveler from the future who wants to rule the world, and so he tries to affect things in the past that can create a better situation for him in the future. Why do I think Kang the Conqueror? Well, first off, Kang the Conqueror wears clothes very similar to what the Timekeepers wear. They look a lot alike. But also because Kang the Conqueror is going to be in the Ant-Man sequel that's coming up, the Ant-Man Quantumania. So already you sort of have a little bit of a connective tissue. Now, these shows haven't necessarily connected to the movies as much as we had all wanted them to. Everybody wanted WandaVision to somehow connect to Stephen Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. It didn't. Everybody kind of wanted Falcon and the Winter Soldier to connect to maybe Black Widow, and it didn't. And now we have Loki, which we're all kind of hoping connects to this Ant-Man, because if it's Kang the Conqueror, then that gives us a sense of direction, like connectivity, and yet so far it hasn't. But why do I think it's Kang? Well, because Kang notoriously is defeated by a couple of people. He's defeated by the Avengers, for sure, but he's also defeated by the Fantastic Four. We know that at the end of Phase 4 here, they're planning on a Fantastic Four movie. Nothing says that the Fantastic Four have to have existed in the 60s. Nothing says that they can't, suddenly be a team now. Of course they can. They don't have to be Marvel's first family in the MCU. But what if? Here's a fun what if that we're going to kind of spin. Ready? Here's a fun what if. What if Kang the Conqueror has been defeated time and again in the multiverse in every timeline by the Fantastic Four? What if he becomes the ultimate Fantastic Four villain? The one that the Fantastic Four are just somehow fated to defeat every single time, regardless of where they are in the multiverse. And when he realized that, he found a way to spin the timelines together and create the sacred timeline. Why is it sacred? Because in this timeline, there is no Fantastic Four. There's an Avengers, but they're much more localized to Earth. The Avengers are not as powerful as they might have been in other timelines, and certainly there's no Fantastic Four to continue to defeat him over and over again. So he has set up a scenario where the Fantastic Four should have existed this entire time, but they don't. And in fact, at the end of time itself, maybe he's waiting, he's ruling the universe and all of time and space because he knows he can. But the things that are happening now with Loki, with WandaVision, with maybe the next Doctor Strange movie, maybe Spider-Man, who knows? Maybe all these things are creating or splintering creating new timelines, splintering and fracturing the sacred timeline, which means eventually the Fantastic Four will come into being, they will exist, and therefore they will be fated to one day defeat Kang the Conqueror in the future. Wild what-if theory, I know. But I have to ask the question. If there's supposed to be a ongoing timeline, if there's supposed to be the sacred timeline with no offshoots, then why is Marvel giving us a what-if show? The what-if show, by very definition, is the multiverse. Now, you said, well, it's not canon, Matt. It's not actually a part of... No one ever said it's not canon. They just said it's a cartoon. No one ever said that it doesn't count. Just that it's not a part of the movies and it's one of the shows that's on Disney+. I think What If very much so isn't canon. I think the splintered realities of What If are the multiverse. I think the multiverse is beginning to exist now with what we saw Lady Loki do. She blew up all sorts of fragments of the timeline, creating variant timelines. I think that's going to be what creates the What If show. And if so, I think all those timelines suddenly coming into being mean that whoever is trying to create this sacred timeline for whatever reasons suddenly has a new enemy. And for me, for my money, I would put the big fight for that at the very end of Phase 4. And what's the last movie that they have planned for Phase 4? Fantastic Four. I mean, it's literally called Phase 4. Not to get too pedantic about it, but hey, it could be all about the phase of creating the Fantastic Four. Anyway, this is just a silly theory from a cartoon character that doesn't really know what he's talking about, that just loves this stuff way too much and gets himself wrapped up deep into conspiracy theories about what could happen. The real question is, what do you think? Is this a precursor to going to the Fantastic Four? Is this something completely different? Is this Doctor Doom with the Infinity Gauntlet affecting all things with the power cosmic? That'd be fun too. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. What are your theories? Do you think this has anything to do with what I'm talking about, or am I just way off base here? Also, how are you enjoying Loki? Halfway through now, do you think that we're gonna get, the resolution we're looking for by the end of the show, or is it gonna leave dangling plot threads? So far, the other shows have successfully wrapped up most of all their dangling plot threads and left just a little something for us to connect to other shows that are coming up. So where do you think we're going to be when we get to the end? Leave a comment below or send me an email to davidcampproductions@gmail.com. If I like your email, if I like your idea, I'll read it here on one of my episodes. And also, us YouTubers, if you liked what you heard, please hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. That would be great. I appreciate that. And seriously, I'm a young channel. I enjoy every one of my views. When you guys come and watch this stuff, I mean, it means something to me. This is my passion, being able to put this out there for you. So I sincerely hope you're enjoying it. yeah, let me know how I'm doing, and I'd love to see you guys back next time. And as always, this is Matt Powers saying, nerd out.
To the vortex!